Hey, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor, please. Make sure, first of all, that you have one of these nearby so that you can use the H's and B's that we talked about yesterday. Check. If you don't have one, raise your hand so I can come and give you one. Good. Anybody want an extra? Raise your hand. You want an extra? I got an extra. Listen, I want your attention for a couple of minutes, please. If you can do me a favor, make sure the person sitting next to you has one of these, please. If they don't, raise your hand so we can get them one. If you're looking for them back there, move. Right here. All right. Listen, I'm a snow card. Please put your eyes on me. If you're looking at me, then I'd like your attention. On this, I'll set a note card. On this piece of paper, I want you to put your name somewhere. This is going to take very long. Go and put your name somewhere. I'm going to ask you to answer 2 questions. I'm going to show a video here in a couple of minutes. It's a demonstration. I went around, I found myself in every single class yesterday. Let's see. I found myself in every single class yesterday going around trying to make like little mini demonstrations. I never had enough time. So after school, I quick recorded myself drawing. So it's not very long, but I'd like you to start off today watching this. I'm going to cut the light off so that you can see it. While you watch it, I want you to answer 2 questions. They're both really easy if you're paying attention. 1, what might you be able to take away from it that's useful? And I want you to write your answer to that on here. And if you go, the whole thing was useless, I don't even see any of it, then the thing that's the most useful out of all of the useless things. And 2, what questions might you still have, or what struggles do you still have? What questions or struggles might you still have about sketching? Those 2 questions. Check with the person sitting next to you. Make sure that he or she understands the 2 questions, please. Raise your hand if you hear somebody has a question, please. Yes, sir.
What are the questions?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. 1, what might you be able to take away from the video? And 2, what do you still have about this sketching? Yeah. So it'll be like you're taking it out of class today, you know? Okay, ready? Demonstration of drawing and from observation, which of course is our work. This is my hand, and here's my pencil, I have my drawing pencil, my eraser, and so on. So we talked about a little bit yesterday. You want to get your hand in a really comfortable position. So mine right now, you know, I'm leaving it like this because this would be one of 4 that I could choose from, and it's comfortable enough to leave for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, which is about the length of time that I would spend on my hand. I'm not going to draw the entire thing right now, but I just kind of want to give you an idea. So I kind of leave it like this, and I want to talk to you about the way I look at things, which is how I'm hoping that you'll start to look at things. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make when we draw from observation is that we let our mind interfere. Our mind tells us what we think a hand should look like, rather than just drawing what it is that we see. So remember, what you want to do is to draw what you see. I usually have an anchor. So my thumb right here would be the anchor in my drawing. So the way I would start is, as I've explained before, really light lines. I go really lightly, and I kind of like outline, my anchor for starters. And so when I say anchor, basically what I mean is that everything that I draw will be anchored around this one thing. And the perspective at which you're seeing right now is a little bit different from what I'm seeing. And so it's not going to be entirely the same. So what you're seeing, in other words, is not exactly consistent with what I'm seeing. But once you get kind of like your anchor, you can go around. My eye basically follows the outline of my thumb like this. And while I'm doing this, I'm noticing different
When I say the perspectives, check the fingers underneath my hand. I couldn't see those at all. I was at two different perspectives. You're looking at a perspective of the camera where I was off to the side. That's all I meant.
values right here. It's a lot darker, for instance, so I put in those darker values as I go. And you can be really loose and kind of expressive, and I see, like, you know, I've got some creases in my thumb right here that I'm going to add in. So you can add all of those details in. You want to keep in mind that this is a sketch. So things don't have to be perfect here. In fact, I would expect them to be less than perfect. You know, if ever you make a mistake, kind of go back and you can erase a little bit if you want to. But I would expect things to be not as clean as something that you work on for several days, which we'll do later. But right now, I'm just trying to get like an overview of everything. My eyes, I'm jumping down here, I'm noticing these lines down here, so I would kind of like fill in like that a little bit, come around, and then eventually what I get to is my wrist and this rubber band and so on. So now I'm getting down here and I'm a little confused because I'm getting too far away from my anchor, which is my thumb. So I'm going to come back up to my thumb and kind of work on this a little bit. And now I'm looking over here at my other finger, how it comes outside of my thumb. And I can kind of like sketch in this area here, go around, and I can see that it kind of comes off. The whole time I'm doing this, I'm constantly measuring. So I'm looking at the space from here to here, and I'm looking at the space from here to see if it's the same. And so I can already see right from here to here is bigger than right here. But my drawing is a little bit bigger than my actual thumb too, so I think I can probably get away with that. So I'm going to come up about like this, and my knuckle up here looks like it comes a little bit above my nail. So I kind of come up here and I measure this part, and I come down, and then I can see my finger, my index finger shoots out over here, so my eye follows that line a little bit. Now again, I'm getting kind of far away from my anchor, which is my thumb. So I come back here as like a point of reference. I go, okay, so I'm kind of confused out here. It's a little confusing. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to notice this line right here, so I can start putting in some of those details along the way. And then ultimately I can put in lines here. I go around like this. Now I notice like right here that it's much darker because my thumb is casting a shadow on my index finger. So I will probably like fill in some of this as I go. And you know, like I said before, you can spend a lot of time adding detail. What we want to do is just kind of sketch and get an overview of about 10 minutes. So I go about like that, and I can see the bottom of my finger, my thumb right here, kind of takes over the bottom of my finger. So somewhere in this region, I have, you know, my finger coming out like this and coming down again right here. It makes like a little triangle. And it's really dark in there because it's actually just face. So I kind of go about like that. And then I see like cracks and lines in my fingers like this. So I'm going to add in some of those details as I go along. Another little thing about like that. And I can see I just made a mistake. And this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. I have one triangle coming out right here, and I've got a bunch of hand, and then another one coming right here. And so what I really want to do is then kind of adjust as I go along, which is going to happen all the time in this world. So I can see that it's going to be closer to something like that. So there's got to be more space between those two little dark areas. And so then this all becomes part of my finger and hand. Like I said, there's little lines and valleys I can add in. I got a crack here next to my thumb that I would probably add in. And then ultimately, I can see a slight edge of my middle finger down here. So I will actually, from my index finger here, I will actually then put in a real light line like this, which ends up being my middle finger, which is behind my thumb and my pointer. I can see the edge of my nail. Put that there, and I can see some cracks. I'm just going to shade this a little bit right now, just kind of give it a little bit of value, a little bit of definition, but not really like address too much in it yet. Now, Now I'm getting back to the point where I want to add a little bit more detail. So in my index finger right here, I would probably start tightening up some of these lines. The way I sketched them in originally is not ultimately how I will leave them in the end. I would want to go through and put in some like nice contour lines around, kind of define some of it. I don't think we should just outline the whole thing, because my hand's not outlined like that. This edge right here, for instance, is really light. So I will probably leave that edge on my drawing a lot lighter. In fact, I can even peel off some because that line is really thin, and I don't need it to be very dark. Other lines, like this part right here, and this, especially this line up here, is a lot darker, so I can add in more values there, or a darker line. I'm kind of sketching something here, add some more values to the creases of my thumb. So I could keep working on this, but ultimately what I want you to see is that I'm starting very slowly and very lightly, and then I'm going back, and I'm working kind of in piecemeal around my hand. Now if I was going to keep working on this, I would kind of bring this line down, and then I'll start negotiating my wrist, you know, somehow it comes out, and then back here I've got another knuckle coming out of my other finger, that's part of this finger. But ultimately, I would go back in and start adding more values, because you'll have more time than what I'm going to spend doing this. So begin lightly, start with an anchor, like my thumb is my anchor, and then just kind of start working around it. And I spend, this is the biggest part, 90% of my time looking at my hand, and only 10% looking down at my drawing. That's how you draw from observation. So, once we get moving, raise your hand if you've got questions. Blue eyes, Boogie.
Go ahead and take a minute, finish writing your answers to the questions on your note card, and set it aside. I'll either come around and collect it, or it'll be taken out of class today. Otherwise, we can pick up right where it is that we left off yesterday. You've got a lot of time left, so